Half of your $1 million condo is mine now." Jordan said it so casually, like ordering another round of champagne. The words slid across the glossy banquet table, landing right in front of me, while the family laughed as though it were the funniest toast of the night. I tightened my grip on the thick folder in my lap, the one containing the deed the mortgage stamped paid in full, every page that proved the condo was mine alone. The ballroom lights reflected in the crystal glasses. Waiters drifted between tables, balancing trays of roasted salmon and clinking wine bottles. My cousin had just received her degree. Everyone was dressed in velvet satin dark suits, talking about futures and inheritances. No one noticed me staring at Jordan. Or maybe they did notice, and that was part of the entertainment. I felt the shock first. My heart pounded, my ears buzzed. Then came the quiet loneliness, the kind you feel when a whole room celebrates while your life is being carved apart. Around me, forks scraped porcelain plates, glasses collided with cheerful pings, and laughter rose. I sat there silent, watching their faces gleam under chandeliers. Jordan leaned closer, lowering the voice just enough for me to hear. "Everyone knows you're just holding it for us. What's mine is mine." A cruel smile, a clink of crystal against crystal. I looked down at the folder again. The keys attached with a brass ring felt heavy in my pocket. A home I had worked for 10 years to pay off every late night at the investment firm, every bonus saved instead of spent, every vacation skipped. And now at a graduation dinner of all places, my partner declared ownership, like claiming a slice of dessert. The family applauded. Jordan winked. To them it was a joke, an offhand remark, maybe even a sign of devotion. To me it was a line drawn in permanent ink. They laughed louder as if rehearsed. I forced a thin smile, because what else could I do in that moment? The air was thick with pretended warmth, with clinking glasses, with the dull throb of humiliation. But what they did not know was that I already had reason to suspect, and that folder in my lap was not just paper, it was preparation. This story will stretch beyond that single toast. It will stretch across silence, betrayal, and the sharp edge of revenge. I will explain in a moment. For now, tell me where you are watching from and hit subscribe. Families and money never mix well, and this part matters. After that graduation dinner, the sound of Jordan's toast kept replaying in my head. 100 voices laughed that night, but the only one I could hear was Jordan's sharp and dismissive, cutting through the air like glass breaking. I carried it home, along with the folder, setting it on the kitchen counter, as if it were the only anchor left to remind me of reality. A few days later, Jordan announced the so-called blackout trip. It was supposed to be a 5-day celebration in Miami with 3 friends, Lauren, Becca, and Chloe. Each of them had their roles, Lauren the ringleader, Becca the copycat, and Chloe the quiet observer who never missed a detail. Jordan tossed a sequined suitcase onto the bed while I stood in the doorway. "It's a girls' trip," Jordan said, eyes sparkling with the thrill of escape. "No texts, no calls. Think of it as a digital detox." I kept my voice even. "You're blocking me for 5 days." "Yes," Jordan replied, folding dresses into neat stacks. "That's the point. A blackout. No distractions. Then with a smirk, you should try it sometime." The words stung, but I had spent years in finance. Numbers and patterns were my daily language. Where others saw a wall, I saw a set of data waiting to be uncovered. I did not argue. I did not plead. Instead, I nodded as though it were nothing at all. When I dropped Jordan at the airport, the morning air was thick with jet fuel and hurried goodbyes. Jordan leaned in, kissed me lightly, and whispered, "Don't miss me too much." I watched as the suitcase wheels clicked across the sidewalk and disappeared through the terminal doors. But I did not drive home. Instead, I went straight to my office downtown. The blackout Jordan had planned gave me something precious: freedom. No need to play the trusting partner while suspicion gnawed at me. I could investigate in full light. I began with the simplest trail transactions. Jordan's credit card statements revealed a booking that didn't match Miami hotels at all. A luxury charter company had charged a deposit. I dug deeper, cross-referencing with flight logs. There was no ticket in Jordan's name to Miami that day. Instead, there was a private yacht scheduled to leave Fort Lauderdale registered to a corporation owned by a senior fund manager I recognized from industry news. That manager was married. 2 children. Public photos of family vacations in Martha's Vineyard. Yet somehow Jordan's path had aligned with his. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with the kind of clarity I hated: the secrecy, the laughter at my expense, the sudden blackout. It was not about Miami. It was about disappearing into someone else's world, someone with more money, more power. But what they did not know was that I had already begun building my own wall of evidence. The first brick came from Becca, who could never resist posting. She uploaded a photo to social media cocktails, glittering water behind them, Jordan's face, half hidden by oversized sunglasses, tagged as Miami vibes. Yet I recognized the deck. It was teak polished to a shine. Not a hotel pool, a yacht. The second brick was a careless slip from Lauren, who filmed a video of champagne glasses clinking. For a moment in the corner of the frame, the sleeve of a man's tailored suit appeared, not one of the girls. Someone else entirely. I saved everything, screenshots, downloads, timestamps. I printed copies and slid them into the folder already thick with deeds and receipts. The anger was there hot and rising, but I pressed it down the way I had done for years. Outwardly, I went about my workdays as usual, meetings, conference calls, spreadsheets. Inwardly, I was tightening every screw of the trap that Jordan never imagined existed. And as the fifth day of the so-called blackout approached, I knew Jordan would walk back into my life, expecting laughter, forgiveness, and the role of the ignorant partner. But I was not waiting at the airport. I was waiting with proof. The fifth day ended without a single message. No cheerful text, no call to say I'm back. I stared at my phone, not out of longing but calculation. Silence has weight. It presses down until the truth forces its way through. That evening, I opened my laptop and sifted through everything I had collected. The folder on my desk was already thick with printouts, but the digital trail was even richer. Screenshots of Becca's careless posts, Lauren's blurred videos, Chloe's quiet but telling comments in group chats, each piece stacked neatly, like chips on a table. Then came the real crack. Someone I barely knew from college sent me a link. "Hey, isn't this your partner?" the message read. It was a Twitter account, anonymous with only a handful of followers. The post showed a short clip, Jordan laughing under the golden Florida sun, a glass of champagne in one hand, an arm draped around a man in a tailored white shirt. The man was not one of Jordan's so-called girlfriends. He was the fund manager, married, children. A man whose name made headlines in financial journals, never in gossip, until now. The clip had only a few dozen views, but it was enough. Viral seeds sprout in unexpected places. I leaned back in my chair, breathing slowly. Humiliation still burned, but beneath it grew something sharper, steadier clarity. The next shock came not from social media, but from Jordan's own inbox. I knew the password. Jordan had once insisted on transparency. Funny how selective that was. Buried between travel confirmations and online receipts was an email unsent, but saved as a draft. "Avery is too boring. I'll cash out soon. The condo is practically mine already." Those words stopped me. Not because they were cruel, though they were, but because they were reckless. Written down, stamped with time and place, impossible to deny. I printed it, slid it into the folder, and stared at the thick stack of evidence. It was no longer a suspicion. It was a case file. Outside my window, Boston's skyline blinked with office lights. People worked late, chasing deadlines, unaware of how betrayal can crawl quietly through the walls of a home. I thought about how many hours I had poured into building that condo, every spreadsheet I had balanced, every risk I had taken at work. And now Jordan believed it could be seized with a smile and a toast in front of family. But the family did not know. Not yet. They saw Jordan as charming, ambitious, always the life of the party. To them, I was the steady one, the financial planner, the one who made things work. They had no idea of the rot underneath. I decided I would not confront Jordan immediately. No shouting, no private argument where words could be twisted later. Betrayal deserved daylight. It deserved an audience. So I waited. I smiled through work. I answered calls. I even liked a few family posts online. All the while I planned. The holiday dinner was coming, the one event where every relative gathered, where stories and reputations stretched across a long table filled with roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, and wine. That would be the stage. And when Jordan raised another glass to charm them all, I would raise something else. But what they didn't know was that I had already prepared the opening act. The holiday arrived with the smell of roasted turkey filling my parents' house. The driveway overflowed with cars. Cousins, uncles, aunts, and grandparents poured through the door carrying casseroles and pies. I held the same thick folder I had been guarding for weeks, its edges worn now from being opened, shuffled, and resealed. Tonight it was not a folder, it was a weapon. Jordan walked in beside me, dazzling as always. A carefully chosen outfit, a smile rehearsed to perfection. The family welcomed Jordan with open arms laughter echoing across the decorated dining room. Everyone seemed relieved to have a reason to celebrate. No one sensed the storm brewing beneath my calm expression. The long dining table glittered with polished silverware and stemmed glasses. Candles flickered. Jordan leaned back in the chair, regaling relatives with stories about Miami. The beach was divine, Jordan said, waving a hand as though dismissing the mundane details. Sunsets, dancing rooftop bars, you would not believe the views. I sat still, my fork resting neatly on my plate. My chest tightened with each false word. Around the table, my relatives nodded their eyes wide with admiration. They believed every syllable. Finally, my father raised his glass. To Jordan, he said, smiling warmly, always making life an adventure. The moment cracked something inside me. I reached down, pulled the remote from my pocket, and clicked. The large television mounted above the fireplace flickered to life. Conversations froze. Forks halted mid-air. On the screen appeared the first photo, Jordan's sunglasses tilted, holding a glass of champagne. At first, the family thought it was part of the vacation story. But then, in the corner of the frame, the arm of a man in a white tailored shirt appeared. Not one of the girls, a man, a married man whose face slowly came into view in the next image. Gasps filled the room. Jordan's smile faltered. What is this? The voice cracked, but I remained silent. I clicked again. A video rolled. Champagne glasses, clinking laughter, and then Jordan's unmistakable laugh leaning against the fund manager. His ring glinted in the sunlight, betraying his marriage, even as Jordan clung to him. The room grew colder than winter air. Relatives exchanged bewildered glances. My mother set her fork down with a soft clink. My cousin whispered, "Is that before trailing off too stunned to finish?" Jordan shot to standing face red. This is taken out of context. But I was not finished. I reached into the folder and slid a printed email across the table. The paper skidded to a stop in front of my uncle, who picked it up and read aloud before realizing the venom in the words. His eyes widened and he handed it back quickly. Avery is too boring. I'll cash out soon. The condo is practically mine already. Silence settled like dust after a collapse. Jordan's lips parted, searching for words, but none came. The entire family stared not at me, but at the image of Jordan unraveling exposed in broad daylight. And as the screen froze on Jordan's face, captured mid-laugh on that yacht, I knew this was only the first act. Because what they didn't know was that the second act would cut even deeper. Jordan's chair scraped against the wooden floor as the room sat frozen. Every eye, every flickering candle flame seemed to press against us both. My relatives, who only minutes before had cheered Jordan's stories of rooftop bars and beach sunsets, now looked like jurors faced with undeniable proof. Jordan's voice cracked the silence. This is twisted. Avery has always been jealous. None of you should believe this circus. I stayed, seated my palms resting calmly on the folder. Jealous, I repeated softly, letting the word hang. Of being mocked in emails, of being called a bank account with legs. The room stirred. My aunt gasped. My cousin muttered bank account. Jordan slammed a hand on the table. Yes, because that is all you are, numbers and property. Without me, you'd still be living in a one-bedroom apartment eating leftovers, pretending your spreadsheets mattered. You're nothing without me, just a walking bank account. The cruelty was sharper than any blade. My relatives recoiled. My father lowered his eyes. My mother shook her head slowly, the kind of shake that meant disappointment too heavy for words. I rose at last, lifting the folder like a judge raising a gavel. You thought you had rights to my home, I said, my voice steady. You paraded in front of this family as if you owned me, as if you owned the life I built. But let me be clear. I opened the folder, pulling out one final document. A trust agreement notarized and stamped, the ink still fresh from weeks earlier. This condo, this life, it belongs to me alone. Every brick, every dollar. It has been secured under my personal trust. You cannot touch it. You never could. I set the document flat on the table. The notary stamp caught the candlelight glinting like a verdict delivered. The silence that followed was heavier than the first. Jordan's face drained of color. The bravado that once carried through every dinner, every party, every family gathering gone. What remained was just a person cornered, exposed, stripped of charm. a cousin whispered. So, Jordan really has nothing. I looked at Jordan, then at the family. Nothing, except the lies they carried into this room. Jordan reached for a wineglass hand, trembling, but no one raised theirs in return. The same family that once clapped at Jordan's jokes now turned away, faces tight, lips pressed shut. Isolation fell on Jordan like a sudden shadow. I gathered my folder, slid the documents back inside, and clasped it shut. You wanted a toast, I said, meeting Jordan's eyes one last time. Here's mine to freedom. I raised my water glass alone. No one laughed this time. And though the evening ended with plates half finished and candles burning low, I knew the true dinner was only beginning. Because what they didn't know was that I still had one more card to play. I woke before sunrise, the sky outside my windows still the color of wet slate. The house felt unfamiliar after the uproar of the night before, quieter as though the walls themselves were waiting to see what I would do next. I brewed a pot of coffee, the steady drip, giving rhythm to my thoughts, and carried a mug through every room like a caretaker taking inventory after a storm. Jordan had not come home. There were no frantic texts, no apologies left on the voicemail, only a curt message stamped near midnight. You humiliated me. Don't think this is over. I read it once, then deleted it the way you might brush away lint from a dark coat. I set the empty suitcase on the living room floor and started filling it with Jordan's things. One by one, silk shirts still smelling of sunscreen and cologne. Designer shoes Jordan insisted were investments, a battered journal filled with half-started resolutions. I packed carefully, almost tenderly, not out of nostalgia, but to be certain there would be nothing left that could claim even a corner of my space. A second suitcase followed, then a third until every drawer, every shelf spoke only my name. The condo grew lighter as possessions disappeared. I noticed how morning sun slid across the hardwood, how the air tasted of fresh coffee and nothing else. I paused beside the tall windows overlooking the city. Boston in early winter shines in an honest way. The cold scrubs the skyline clean. I took a breath long and steady and felt the knot inside me loosen another notch. When the packing was done, I placed all 3 suitcases in a neat row by the front door. Then I set up my phone on a tripod facing the hallway. The camera's eye blinked at me waiting. I pressed record. Good morning, I said, my voice low but even. Some journeys end where they should have begun, at the truth. These suitcases belong to someone who mistook love for leverage, who thought lies weigh nothing. I paused, letting the lens capture each packed bag. They weigh plenty, and today they travel alone. I ended the recording, trimmed it to less than a minute, short enough to hold a stranger's attention long enough to show every detail, the suitcases, the silent hallway, my calm expression. The caption I typed was simple, a gentle exit for a harsh betrayal. I posted the clip to an account I rarely used. 5 minutes later, it had 100 views. 20 minutes later, it had several thousand. By noon, my phone buzzed nonstop, hearts, comments, shares. People love a clean story, deception, exposed villain, unmasked suitcases at the door. They wrote lines like, justice served and pack light, travel far. And my favorite, her calm is louder than any scream. I did not reply. I only watched the numbers rise, a small, silent comfort. By mid-afternoon, a local digital news outlet embedded the clip in a lifestyle column about healthy boundaries. The reporter titled it, Financial Advisor Delivers Masterclass in Dignified Breakup. A national morning show requested permission to air the footage the next day. I granted it with a single sentence, use it if it reminds someone that trust is earned, not owed. Around dusk, Jordan called. I let it ring, then another call, then a third. Finally, a text lit up the screen. You turned our private life into a sideshow. Take the video down or I'll sue. I answered with one line. My lawyer says truth is an iron fence. Good luck climbing it. I meant every word. Earlier that week, I had retained counsel, a quiet woman named Margaret, who believed in paper more than promises. Night settled. City lights flickered on. I loaded the suitcases into a rideshare and paid the driver extra to deliver them to Jordan's friend Lauren, an address I knew because Lauren once bragged about her Riverview apartment. I wrote no note. The suitcases themselves said enough. When the driver pulled away, taillights dwindling in the dark, I stood on the curb breathing winter air until my lungs tingled. The silence felt earned. Back upstairs, I opened the folder one more time, thumbing through the stack yacht photos, Instagram stories, the email calling me boring, the notarized trust. I slid a fresh sheet on top, a printout of the viral clip, with view numbers already marching into 6 figures. Evidence takes many shapes. Sometimes it is as modern as a trending hashtag. I filed everything in a fireproof box and locked it. Then I walked room to room, turning off lights, letting the condo rest. In the bedroom, I stripped the bed, tossed Jordan's last pillowcase into a donation bag, and smoothed new linen across the mattress, fresh, crisp mine. Before sleep, I opened my journal, the one habit Jordan never bothered to ridicule, and wrote a single line. Revenge is not noise. It is the space left when deceit moves out. I closed the book, set it on my nightstand, and lay back listening to the city breathe. But I was not finished. Tomorrow would bring lawyers' headlines, perhaps Jordan's final attempt to spin the story. I would meet each turn with the same calm I showed the camera, because there was still one promise to keep a final thread to tie. And what the world did not know, what even Jordan could not imagine, was that the last reveal would cut deeper than any video. Morning news begins like a slow tide, one headline lapping after another, until a single name starts bobbing on every wave. By 8 o'clock, the fund manager's face appears on 2 financial channels and 1 local station. The anchors speak in measured tones about ethical lapses, marital impropriety, and unreported use of corporate assets. Clips from my video flash beside stock photos of boardrooms and yachts. Viewers do not know who filmed the clip, they only know what it shows. And that is enough to start the storm. By noon, the manager's firm releases a statement promising an internal review. Attorneys for board members leak that if necessary, they will seek repayment of the charter's cost, nearly $200,000 plus damages for reputational harm. The manager's spouse, a poised woman whose holiday letters once described sailing lessons for their children, files for divorce before sunset. The petition cites verifiable digital evidence in wide circulation. All day long, my phone vibrates with calls from journalists, lawyers, distant acquaintances who suddenly remember we once shared a cafeteria table in college. I silence most of them. A cousin texts to ask if I plan to monetize the footage. I write back, truth is wealth enough, and leave it at that. Jordan, however, does not stay silent. At 6 in the evening, just as I finish reviewing quarterly reports from a client, the intercom buzzes. The doorman announces that Jordan is downstairs with urgent personal business. I picture the lobby, Jordan clutching a phone, cheeks flushed, ready to perform sincerity. I meet Jordan on the building's front steps. Wind whips from the harbor, scattering brown leaves across the sidewalk. Jordan's eyes are red lids, puffy from either tears or sleeplessness. "You won, Jordan," says voice hoarse. "You ruined me." I cross my arms, feeling the cold through my coat, yet steadier than I have felt in months. "No," I answer. "You ruined yourself and tried to take me with you. I chose not to follow." Jordan's hands tremble. "At least talk to me. Off camera. No lawyers." I shake my head. "Everything of yours is gone. You received your luggage, I assume." Jordan nods, then blurts, "I have nowhere to stay. Lauren's landlord kicked her out after reporters swarmed the building. Chloe moved back with her parents. Becca deleted every account she had and will not answer my calls." For a moment, I study Jordan's face, remembering the charm that once lit up family dinners, the laugh that filled our condo while music played. I see none of that now. Just exhaustion and the slow dawning that charisma cannot rewrite facts. "You still have money," I say evenly. "You told me once your half of my condo was worth $1 million. Cash out some of that imaginary equity." Jordan flinches. "Avery, please. I was foolish. I'll sign anything. I'll stay quiet." "You already signed," I remind, lifting the folder. I brought a slimmer folder, now paired to one final document. "Last summer, when we refinanced to lock in a lower rate, you signed a quitclaim deed transferring any interest to me." I open the folder, show the single sheet. Jordan's signature sits beside mine, notarized. "You were rushing out to dinner that night," hardly glanced at the page. Jordan stares at the paper as though it were a snake uncoiling. "I did not read. I trusted you." "And I trusted you," I answer, sliding the deed back into place. Trust cuts both ways. A car horn echoes down the street. Jordan wraps arms around a thin jacket, looking smaller than I have ever seen. "What do you want?" the voice cracks. "Public apology money. I will do anything." I inhale the icy air. What I wanted, I say slowly, was honesty. Since that is gone, I want closure. I hand over a plain envelope bearing my lawyer's letterhead. Inside is a single page, a mutual release, a pledge of no contact, outside legal counsel, and confirmation that neither party will speak for or against the other in future proceedings. Sign this, and we part ways permanently. No interviews, no memoirs, no lawsuits. You keep whatever savings you have. I keep my peace. Jordan flips the page, eyes darting. You expect me to disappear. I expect you to live your life elsewhere, I reply, quietly. Jordan's shoulders sag. A pen appears from the pocket of that thin jacket. On the cold hood of a parked car, Jordan signs each stroke shaky yet final. I slip the page into the folder, latch it shut. As I turn to leave, Jordan whispers, You were always the strong one. I do not look back. Strength, I think, is simply the refusal to stay where harm is comfortable. Upstairs, I scan the signed release, email it to Margaret, then place the original inside the fireproof box. The condo is silent, washed in amber light from the setting Sunday. I brew chamomile tea, sit by the window, and watch dusk settle over the harbor. My phone pings one last alert. The clip of the suitcases has crossed 2 million views. I set the phone face down. Numbers can wait, serenity cannot. In the quiet, I think of something my grandmother used to say while quilting on winter nights. A tight stitch holds longer than a loud knot. I never understood it as a child. I understand now. Revenge, when stitched with truth, holds without tearing. Tomorrow there will be no more headlines with my name. The world's attention will drift, as it always does. But the space left behind clean, bright mine will remain. And though my story has circled the globe, one last turn is still to come. Closure is honest only when it speaks in both directions. A week after Jordan signed the release, winter settled in for good. Snow dusted the balcony rails soft as sifted flour, and the harbor froze at the edges, a mirror the wind could not quite shatter. I spent the first quiet days reclaiming corners of my life, the way you reclaim a house after guests leave slowly with small gestures. I rearranged books on the living room shelf, stored summer linen beneath the bed, and placed a single jade plant on the kitchen sill. It leaned toward the pale sun, a stubborn green promise that seasons change and people survive. The phone still chimed now, and then reporters hungry for one last angle, strangers sending messages that began. You do not know me, but your story. I answered none. Instead, I wrote letters to clients, checked in on elderly neighbors, and took long evening walks through streets lit by holiday garlands. Children pulled sleds across city parks. Shop windows glowed with knitted scarves and cinnamon candles. Life indifferent to scandal kept rolling forward. One evening, my mother called. Her voice was tentative, wrapped in equal parts pride and apology. Your father and I watched the news, she said. We never knew how heavy things had grown. She paused. Come for supper Sunday. No parties, no speeches. Just stew and fresh bread. I agreed. Some wounds ask only to be seen before they begin to heal. Sunday came with the smell of beef, simmering in red wine. Around the kitchen table, my family asked gentle questions, nothing prying. My father passed me the salt eyes soft, as though passing an unspoken understanding from his generation to mine. Sometimes you must burn a bridge to see the other shore. We ate, we laughed softly, and when I left, my mother pressed a small tin of cookies into my hands, the way she did when I was a child. Back home, I opened the balcony door despite the cold. City lights glittered like scattered coins. The quiet hummed with distant traffic and the slow churn of the river ice. I placed the tin of cookies on the table beside my journal and poured a glass of water. No champagne, just water clear and honest. I sat open the journal and wrote, Trust lost is never wasted. It is forged into vigilance. I paused, then added revenge ends when peace feels lighter than proof. I closed the book, laid my pen across the cover, and let the silence settle. Finally, I reached for my phone and opened the same account that had stunned the world a week earlier. I recorded one last clip. No drama, no suitcases, just me and lamplight. A folded release in one hand and my jade plant in the other. I told you there was one more card, I began, voice calm. It is not a legal paper or another secret. It is this: I forgive myself for staying too long, and I forgive you if you need longer to learn. Because revenge is never the goal. Freedom Island, I set the release into a metal tray and struck a match. Flame curled the edge, turned ink to gray lace. When only ash remained, I tipped it into a ceramic bowl and whispered rest. I looked into the lens. If you think I chose the right ending, write right in the comments. If you see a better path, share your idea, I will be reading. And wherever you watch from, hold your peace close. It is worth more than any condo, any yacht, any viral moment. I smiled a quiet smile that needed no witness and ended the recording. The video posted, but I did not stay to watch the numbers climb. I brewed chamomile, placed the jade plant back on its sill, and stood by the window while snow began again, soft and patient. The condo felt warm whole. My own breath fogged the glass. Beyond it, winter wrapped the city in clean white. I whispered just for me home.